Welcome to Money Matters. I am Emily Johnson, Certified Financial Planner and Managing Director at Polaris Capital Advisors, and I am joined by the wonderful and amazing David Crowell of the Mortgage Network here in Hilton Head. And we are here to discuss all things where your money matters, and this week we thought that we would actually go with sort of the most popular questions that we receive and some of the myths that we hear from folks. And we shouldn't actually say myths because so much of the right thing to do has to do with opinion and circumstance, but we just thought that we would go back and forth with the most popular questions that we're hearing these days, and either one, debunking the myth, if that is in fact the case, or at least providing some alternate opinions.
Providing some insight to it.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. They're not all myths, they're just popular views, sometimes mythical, sometimes it's just a popular view, and we're going to try to put some foundation under the popular. Here's one. Here's an easy one. When you buy your home, at least the value in your home is safe because it's a piece of real estate, and there's nothing safer than bricks and mortar.
Right. Well, I actually just had this conversation yesterday, ironically, because an individual was interested in of the two spouses, individual is interested in buying a home. They're not sure if they're going to be here for more than 3 years. It's definitely an unknown. It's a really good deal that they could potentially get on this home. It's going to be owner financed, and therefore one spouse says, well, we could probably make $200,000, $300,000 on this home in the next couple of years. Other spouse says, and this is I feel a little bit more like I'm aligned with this spouse. Other spouse says, well, you know what, we're actually, if we're buying the house, number one, no, we don't need any money down, but two, our payment's going to go up, and it's interest only, which means that when our payment goes up and it's just going to interest, we're not actually building any equity in the house. So that was number one. And number two, the house, as lovely as it is and as great a value as it is going to have problems. And you can see it. I mean, there's definitely, having just gone through this myself, there's definitely problems. So over the course of the next 2 to 3 years, let's say they think they're buying $200,000 or $300,000 in equity, for which they're going to be paying more every single month that is not increasing their equity. Even if we have a growth market, they're probably going to be throwing 100, 150, sort of that unknown number into this house for just the things that are the thankless things, not the new hardwood floors. It could be the electrical that you just don't see, but you know when it doesn't work. So things like that. So I was less inclined to be supportive of the let's buy the house, we can make money on it right away type deal, at least in this market. And I am not going to pretend to be a realtor or have any knowledge around that at all, but I do hear how strong the market is. That's wonderful. That's great. I don't know that that would be the time that you'd want to make that chance, take that chance. And this is a first-time home buyer, but it's a large home.
Here's the dividing line, the red dividing line, the brilliant dividing line in real estate for me, lending money on real estate all day, every day. To Emily's point, largely to Emily's point, the big difference is between personal residence and investment property, or any other real estate other than the residence that you live in. The residence that you live in has a big plus going for it, and that's called its utility value. You have to live somewhere. In Hilton Head, let's do an all-American family, husband, wife, 2 kids, and a dog, and a goldfish.
And a rabbit.
And a rabbit.
Yeah.
Rent is going to be $2,500. The cost of the home is going to be $2,500. These are minimums. Therefore, if you own the home, the utility value of that is $2,500. In other words, that's a given for starters. You're going to have to rent something if you don't own something. The value, therefore, since the house is not going to be sold, the value is irrelevant until the point of sale. So if you live in it for 13 years, then you can literally hold your eyes and ears out of the market and not question what the actual value of the property is for 12 and a half years until you come up close to the point where you must sell it. So that's a very interesting feature.
And I find, too, that when we're dealing with financial plans for individuals that are 55 and older that most actually aren't considering their home as an asset. And
That's
perhaps we
affirmative.
just look really conservatively at these things, because you certainly could look at your home as a future source of income, as an asset, but 97% of the time, that house, even if it's paid off, and the thought of getting a HELOC on it, or an equity line, is even anathema to most folks. That is an asset that is sitting off to the sidelines,
right.
that is not considered as part of a financial plan.
And that's the sort of bop 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 of the tennis ball back and forth, because exactly what Emily said comes back again to for the older homeowners, comes back to the utility value, because the older homeowner is looking at what I unkindly call a pine box home, a pine box mortgage, perhaps. This is a home which is only valued for how happy you are living there, because it's not going to be sold before you die, or before you go into assisted living. So essentially, your valuation of it has nothing to do with your portfolio. How much are we going to make on it? What's its appreciation going to be? Nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with, am I enjoying living there? And number two, is the cost of living there consistent with the cash flow that Emily can generate for me from my portfolio?
Well, and then there is the
Yeah.
point, I mean, so that just to be clear, there is certainly a point, and there are lots of circumstances where it does make sense to look at the house as an asset, because for many, many people, their house and their 401k, which ultimately becomes their IRA, if that's even there, unless they have a pension, that's it. That's pretty much, there might be a rainy day fund, and that has $10,000, $15,000 in it to cover when the roof starts leaking, but then that house is pretty much it. So trying to find a way to actually monetize the house, while it's not as common, I feel like that I don't run into that
It's not as
much.
common.
But you do, it is a necessity for some folks too.
It's not as common, and that brings up a good point. Monetizing the house, that means selling the house that's very valuable, extracting cash out of it, and buying a lesser house. So it's otherwise called downsizing.
Right. Or taking cash out of it and staying. There's so many variables. Some people do that because perhaps they have.
But what I see in financing is the downsizing strategy, and that really needs to be done sooner than you would think. Not when you're 88 years old or 90 years old. That's the wrong time to be downsizing. The right time to be downsizing is when you're 65, 70 years old, so that you can have the cash, so that you can have a good life in retirement.
And yet that's when the grandkids start coming.
That's right.
In mass. And so the thought of downsizing at that point is, it doesn't happen.
Exactly. You say, I've worked all my life to have a gorgeous place to retire in, so gosh darn it, I'm going to have the 3,800, 4,500 square foot house to downsize into.
Oh, it doesn't feel
Not
quite like,
really the
right.
best idea, but that's the way the plan worked out. So back and forth over the net it goes. The bottom line is, there is no good answer. It has to be the confluence of the utility value and the cost, the monthly cost to you, and the size of the rest of your estate. If the rest of your estate has a modest 401k in it, you should downsize.
I would also argue that the health component of that, because that is becoming more and more of a focus in a lot of the financial planning aspects that we're looking at, is what is the long-term cost of your health, both from if you actually remain healthy till a ripe old 106, or if you're going to incur a lot of very expensive health bills earlier on, say in your 60s, 70s, and what that's going to do if you have a spouse that has longevity. And those, I mean, so many of these variables are unknown, but there's a lot more focus on it right now, and it's fascinating. So I definitely put health up there in that decision. Is
all of these, even though I'm in the business of lending money and Emily's in the business of investing money, all that we've just talked about, all of these planning issues, are of much greater importance than what we do on a daily basis. The most important thing, really, I often think, is that we represent sounding boards so that people can talk about these bigger issues. Because really, the investing that Emily does and the lending that I do are tweaking around the edges of a good life plan. If you have a good life plan, you've got a shot at having a successful investment plan and a successful debt plan. But if you don't have a good life plan, there's nothing we can do really.
Well, there's actually a lot of ways that we're going to expand on this in the second half of the show, so please stick with us. We'll be right back.